Let's unpack this now with Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, who's with the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at Nelson Mandela University. He's the director and joins us now. Prof Mngomezulu, KwaZulu-Natal is a very interesting case study of coalition politics at the moment, particularly when the electoral outcomes does not lend itself to very clear negotiating possibilities. Should the IFP at this point cut its losses, opt to get out of government, and just try again when the general elections come around again?
Thank you very much, Dixon, for having me, and good evening to your viewers. In politics, you don't just give up just because there is noise coming or because you see that there are people who are challenging your position. You basically show a brave face as if you are unfazed until such time that the reality then sinks in. So in this case, the IFP produced Mr. Tamintuli as the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, even though the IFP only got 18% of the votes. But then it was not because of the IFP's victory in KwaZulu-Natal. It was because of the coalition that had already been clinched at a national level. You recall the historic statement that was delivered by the IFP president, Verenkosi Nhlabisa, when he said that the deal that they clinched at a national level had no bearing in KwaZulu-Natal, referring to the agreement that reached with the ANC and the DA. But in the same statement, towards the end, he then said that as the IFP, they had already suggested the name of Mr. Tamintuli to be the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, and went on to say that both the ANC and the IFP had already agreed that they were going to support the IFP, which then raised questions as to what is it that Mr. Nhlabisa was saying. But having said all of that, the issue is not necessarily that Mr. Ntuli has failed to deliver in his mandate. Of course, those who are close to the situation will have a different opinion. But for me, the bone of contention is that the IFP was not supposed to produce the Premier in the first instance, which is then, of course, the concern that the MK party is having. The other issues are additional issues. The issue of substance is how the IFP emerged to be the one producing in KwaZulu-Natal.
About 3 weeks ago, the MK party extended an invitation to the ANC to formally enter negotiations between the MK party and the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Is that perhaps a route of coalition that you think will present more stability to the people and the residents of KwaZulu-Natal?
Dixon, I think that it's not just a matter of bringing stability, it's a matter of fairness. Recall that the ANC at national level got 40.18%, making it the leading party when all the other parties were combined. But then, of course, that was far below the 50+1 threshold that is needed for a party to constitute government. But then, because the ANC had the majority, comparatively speaking, then it was the one that constituted government at a national level. So the expectation then from the MK party was that by virtue of it having obtained 45.35% in KwaZulu-Natal, then of course it was supposed to constitute government. You had different versions of the story depending on who you ask. If you ask the IFP, you ask the ANC, they will tell you that they tried to have discussions with the MK party and the MK party did not come to the party. Then if you ask the MK party, it will tell you that all of that is lies. They tried everything possible to negotiate, but then the ship had already sailed through because the deal had already been clinched at a national level. So then it had to translate to the provincial level. So it depends on who you ask. And then in terms of stability, the one that would have worked would have been for the ANC to constitute government at a national level and then the MK party to constitute government at the provincial level. For me, that is what would have been fair to the voters, both at a national level and then, of course, at the provincial level.
Well, of course, in coalition politics, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate for. Perhaps to get clarity on this, do you think a negotiation between the ANC and the MK party will get off the ground?
Anything is possible in politics, Oliver. You would have thought that there are parties that did not see eye to eye. Let me make a case of the DA, for example. It was basically throwing insults at the ANC, saying they are corrupt, they are thieves, they are everything. Before you knew it, they were sharing the blue lights. So then there is nothing sinister about that. It has happened in other countries too. So in this case, it appears as if the ANC and the MK party are on different positions. But then, of course, if they do find each other, then there is still a possibility that they can constitute government, particularly because if you look at their views on domestic policy positions and foreign policy positions, they share a lot in common than the ANC does with the DA. So if the ANC could work with the DA at a national level, given the divergent opinions they have on on various issues, what would then prevent the ANC and the MK party finding each other in KwaZulu-Natal? Of course, then that will put a question on the IFP. Where would the IFP feature in all of this? If I had it my way, the ANC, the MK party, and of course the EFF and the ANC would work together without any problem, because those are parties we classify as leftist parties that share a lot in common than their divergent opinions.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Prof Mngomezulu. Really do appreciate it. Prof Bheki Mngomezulu is with the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy.